Hi everyone. I thought I'd just put a video together that might help other HTC Vive users or even other controller types that I haven't got a lot of experience with, but may provide some inspiration as to how you can put together your own rifle stock for use with VR games that are the first-person shooter type. What inspired me to put something like this together, apart from seeing similar things on the internet, both homemade and commercial, was playing a game called Onward, which some of you may know. But I found that this free floating approach to using my controllers as a rifle, it just frustrated me not being able to get the accuracy and sight on target, the quick acquisition of sight on target that I needed to engage the AI. So I thought I'd put something together. But yeah, I can't credit anybody in particular because I just can't remember. But basically, like anybody, I looked on the internet, on YouTube, to see what options there were to have a mock rifle stock, a mock rifle stock. And as I said, there was some some homemade options, and even some commercial options that looked all space age, but you paid through the nose for them. It was like $1,600, and I thought, nah. They might look nice, but basically when you put your mask on and you're in the virtual world, who's going to look at it except maybe a spectator? So I didn't see any point in buying something super expensive. If you can afford it, all the power to you. But I get the same result, in my opinion. I get the same result from this by purchasing a majority of these parts from a local hardware store. Granted, not all of these parts are obviously from the hardware store. Obviously, the hand controllers must be excluded because they're part of the HTC Vive. These, on the other hand, somebody has, they look like they've been machined, but these are third party. I don't think Vive make these at all. So they're a third party hand controller protection cage, and I keep them in the design because they have a part of them, particularly this screw here, this hole screw, which is integral to making this rifle stock work. So yes, so most of this you can get from your local hardware store. These, of course, I'll put up on the screen that you have to purchase these separately, but they're not all that expensive, so it's well worth it in my opinion. Anyway, so let's get these parts out of the way and focus on the stock itself. So everything you see on the screen here is a good hardware store parts. So just going through some of them now. You've got a couple of T-intersection, PVC pipe T-intersections, internal measurement says 33 millimeters or nearly 34 millimeters, and that corresponds with the diameter, outside diameter of the pipe sections. So I've got two of those, 3 elbows, and an end cap. Now, if unless you already sniffed it out, basically this T-intersection here will be used where the front hand controller will be. This is the trigger controller, and this section here is your buttstock. Originally, I had the design going straight through here and down, but I quickly found out during testing that my HMD, head-mounted display, would hit the end of the plastic tube just about there, and I couldn't get in as if I was looking down iron or optics sights. So I ended up cutting it about there and bringing it down about the size of 2 elbows, as you can see. And this works particularly well for me. I suppose this space here is for the HMD, and that way I can look down the sights. So I'll admit it, it's ugly, but it works. And yeah, I'll go through some of the other parts now. So what you'll need is these PVC pipe. You can get one long PCP pipe and cut it into bits as you need. You'll need some 6mm by 100mm bolts, 3 of, but make sure they're the countersunk type. I don't know if you've seen that very well, sorry about that. The countersunk type at the top there, this wing nut doesn't come with the bolt, obviously it's separate, it's just screwed to the very top. So you'll need 3 of these. You'll need 4 6mm wing nuts. You'll need, that's optional, that's more of a shim. You'll maybe need 4 washers. And I'll show you where they go and why, and you can decide for yourself whether they're needed. You'll need some more PVC piping. So the top diameter is 27.3mm, but I can't rightly remember what the bottom diameter was because I've actually cut that off a bigger piece. So it was actually an expander or contractor or whatever they're called, reducer, sorry. And I've cut it to a height of 23.5mm. And yeah, so I cut it there, smoothed it off, and that's the result. So it's a reducer, and I just can't remember what the large diameter of the reducer was, but it's been cut to a height, as I mentioned before, 22.4mm, and I'll show you where that's used. Another bit of pipe. Total height, 26.4mm, diameter. It's 21.2 and just 21mm. The diameter of this is not important. It's just more about the height. But you just use it as a guide. 26.4, and you can see it's cut as if, you see there? The pipe's cut as if it's going to, I'll tell you now, it's going to sit on the inside of that pipe. So it has to be, you have to do a little bit of carving, and I can tell you now that this is not the best result that I've achieved, but it does work. So that's that. And as I already mentioned, this is more of a shim. So I'll show you where this goes, so that can be optional. So let's start putting it together. So this is the front grip. I actually have another piece that sits on the front here. This is so light, adding more to this would barely be registered when you're using it. But I have a little bit of a section on the end here. I suppose that could simulate the end of the barrel. But again, it doesn't add that much weight or any noticeable weight to it, and can be left off. But sometimes I put it on for effect. So with the front section, what you do is these 2 discs, this disc and this disc, are actually a pair of discs where one's a magnet and one's just ferrous metal. And you buy it, I bought this from Bunnings, where they're just, magnetic, 2 parts of magnetic. And they make such a good fit because this countersunk bolt, that in this case I've cut down, actually sits really nicely in the center of that magnet. This one doesn't so much, and I'll admit now that I had to drill into this a bit further than it came with, because it already comes with a countersunk hole. I had to drill in a little bit deeper. I didn't get it all the way flush. It doesn't matter, because this side is recessed so much that this bolt, the top of this countersunk bolt, just marries in there so nicely and forms just a beautiful connection. All right, so the actual parts, they're from Bunnings, and I'll put that up on the screen now. And if you can find an equivalent in your own old hardware store, well, all the power to you. But these ended up being exactly the type I needed. So with the front grip, this is where this piece of plastic comes in. All right, notice there's also a 6mm bolt on the underside of the magnet. So that's to just secure it all together. Otherwise, if we didn't, this would just wobble all over the place. So with the flat part of the plastic right there, we then feed it messily. All right, I'll get this in frame in a second. Right, there we go. So that goes through there. Oh, I haven't mentioned it, but there's some 6mm holes, basically drilled a little bit larger than 6mm, drilled at the top of each of the T intersections. Okay, so back to the front hand grip. I put a washer on there, and then take one of the wing nuts, and I start to tighten it down. And I don't know if you can see it all that well, but you can see that plastic in there. Let's try a different angle. No, I can't try a different angle. But trust me when I say the plastic, because I've carved it, now starts to bite into the top of the pipe, right? And what you're left with is that magnet now recessed, in that hole, and sitting nice and stable. It's really tight, and it's just beautiful. It doesn't move, and that's important. I think it needs to be nice and stable. So that's the front hand grip. The rear hand grip, actually no, let's start on the front hand grip. So this is my front hand grip. I need to take one of these handrails, right, and using this reducer, I pop that there. And for me, I know I need this shim, just so this side of the magnet goes into that recess a little bit deeper. You might not need this recess. It depends how you cut that reducer. So you can see now that this is just screwing into that handguard. Right. This is not, we're not talking plus or minus a mil or 2 mil, right? This doesn't have to be perfect. And on the underside, let's grab another washer. This is just to make sure it could be fine just as is, but I don't know. I just like to have just a little bit of assurance that it's in there nice and tight. I wouldn't go too tight, but finger tight's enough. And that's now in there nice and solid. And watch what this does. That is the core of this rifle stock. How they two marry together and form. Yeah, it might twist a bit, but who cares? In game, you're always going to have it forward. But I can now take that off, load a magazine, cock a weapon, throw a grenade. Not very good with my left hand. But that is the end result of those two marrying together. Now, I only got to that part with lots of trial and error. So I've got to admit that you're probably going to go through the same thing, unfortunately. But you have to do that to find a good fit, because these measurements are not exact. So let's do the trigger grip now. Okay, this one doesn't need to be nearly as complicated. It's just the hand grip, Another drill hole. Nothing underneath there. It just simply sits in the cup. Grab another bolt, slip it through. Start screwing. Grab one of our, oops, you know what I forgot? Forgot to put the washer on there, but let's just pretend there's a washer there for now. Doesn't matter. Another washer down there. I like to put washers on things because that way this wing nut, for example, isn't going to dig itself into the plastic. Those two together, bit of a hand tight, and there we have it. The hand controller. Like that. So before I forget, I'll give you some of the dimensions between the hand controllers and the rest of the buttstock, but please, whatever you do, take these measurements with a grain of salt, because it's incredibly important that you use them as a guide, but your needs are going to be different to mine. You may be taller, you may be shorter, you may be stocky, you may be thin. There's all sorts of reasons why these measurements may not be for you. So what I did is I got a general feel for where I think these controllers would be, and I cut these and temporarily fixed them without glue into where I think they needed to be. If they were too long, I cut them. If they were too short, I cursed and cut again. The idea is it's trial and error, but I'll just give you a rough idea of where we stand. So between the first and second T is 250. Between the trigger T and the first bend is one. These are all in millimeters, by the way. Get that into the frame. The T to the next intersection is 150. That's center to center, by the way. What we got there? 80 millimeters center to center, roughly. Center to center, let's say 190. These are not I'm not measuring the lengths of these pipes. I'm measuring center to center of the joints. So the pipes are going to be obviously shorter than this. And then finally, make sure there's a frame. Finally, down in the end, it's about 150. So again, I implore you, use those as a guide only. So whatever measurement is there, the pipes themselves are going to be shorter. Just have a hacksaw ready, cut through it, clean it up. And once you're absolutely certain, make sure you lay this on the table and make sure all these joints are straight. So I've done my best to make sure all these joints are in line. The last thing you want is these joints to be in line and suddenly the buttstock is off to an angle. Because once they're glued in place, they're not designed to be pulled apart. So this is just PVC glue. Really cheap stuff you can get from Bunnings. And once you're happy with your design, pump it all together, put a bit of glue in there, work fast. PVC glue does not take long to cure. And before you know it, you've got your rifle stock. You may be wondering, what's it like as a pistol? The good thing about this not being metal and being plastic is light. So I can shoot this as if it was a pistol quite easily. My only concern is sometimes with the goggles, I have to feel my way around before this comes together. So this can sometimes be hard to find when you can't see. Maybe you've got a better way that you can think of to achieve that. But what I was thinking was probably putting another expander on here. So it'd be a bigger diameter, like a guide. So even if I'm off a little bit, it'll guide me back into the hole. But yeah, so that is my design for my HTC Vive rifle stock. If you have any questions, post them below. Don't ask me about prices, because they're going to differ from place to place, and obviously over the years, as this video carries on, prices are going to change. So you're just going to have to check them out for yourself. But otherwise, works really well for me. I'm really happy. My accuracy in game, well, no, not perfect, has definitely gone up. I can acquire my targets quickly. I've got a steady aim, and it was well worth it. So hope it helps you out. And once again, if you've got any questions that I can answer, post it below. Thanks very much.